Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. Hope you guys have all had a wonderful weekend and have had some time to relax. However, it's time to get back to work because we got futures and the overnight session that has started to open up here. Palantir starting to catch a bid. Overnight momentum is looking quite well. Earnings after the bell. So lots of excitement here that's going to be piling into the market, especially on a Monday. And we have futures across the board opening up quite well too, most likely in reaction due to the whole US-China trade deal that kind of has been solidified, as we've seen in the details that we talked about in yesterday's video. We'll be talking about cryptocurrency, Ethereum, BMNR. We've been talking about that also recently, and also some big key players that are going to be releasing earnings this week, and historically what November usually has at stake for the overall market. If you're a new or returning viewer, hit that like button and subscribe for daily videos. We're trying to hit 30,000 subscribers, and follow me on X down in the description. It's completely free, so I can connect with you guys more on a frequent basis. So you don't have to wait until the nighttime for videos like this to come out. Pop it up on the screen here. Palantir closes here on Friday session at 247 cents. Now pop it up where it currently is seeing a bid in the overnight session is up about 204 basically right here, another 350. In terms of resistance here, and wow, in terms of Palantir's price action, this was our end of the year price targets in terms of testing resistance here at the 200. One thing that I do like in terms of a technical basis is we got to close above the 200 right here, and currently continuing to see a bid in the overnight session. One other thing that keeps a little bit of uncertainty that sits there, this will help solidify where Palantir's price is probably going to go. It'll be interesting to see what happens here, is we have earnings after the bell. Now, earnings revenue estimates right here are expected to be at about 1.09 billion. Earnings per share revisions, last 90 days, we've seen 20 in the bullish direction, 0 in the bearish, and this correlates here to an earnings per share normalized of 17 cents. In terms of, I like this right here from TrendSpider on X. Can Palantir make the 9 straight beats tomorrow? Can it make 9 straight beats? At this valuation, it has to. And I agree 110% with this statement right here. We all know Palantir, it carries a very high valuation. We know. But if people were kind of basically jamming that same argument down our throats since $17, then they've missed out from 17 all the way to 200. And in terms of its price to perfection, it is. So Palantir does need to beat this. And if for some reason it doesn't, that's where you can see some selling pressure. And it's at a very, very interesting price point at 200 right now, at a big milestone, psychological price point, and it's starting to formulate a little bit of support there, though there's not any type of strong support that I rely on. But it's starting to see that. That's what we're seeing in the overnight session. In terms of what I am predicting, hopefully, we'll see what happens. This could all be cramming down my mouth, and I will want to take the words right back out. Palantir has historically done very well with their earnings, and I think that's going to continue, especially with this whole AI rush in the industry right here. And I mean, the recent announcement with NVDA. And for some reason, if they come in line or miss their earnings for some reason, I don't really care. I think that would only be bullish because in terms of what you're actually seeing, in terms of the headlines, in terms of the partnerships, we're seeing rapid expansion. So don't really care to see how this trades here, but that's just all my own personal short-term prediction. If it beats earnings, I also could see Palantir really not moving a ton just because it's always already just made a good move, and a lot of this could possibly be priced in, but I think a lot of this was from the NVIDIA mumbo jumbo. So long story short, we'll see where it goes. In terms of the futures right here, I have posted this. Futures right here, confirmed. Remember at the US-China deal, seeing some optimism. The US 500 right here, market could be opening up possibly at about 68, 61, up about 0.3%. Where we saw a close on the actual market, let's toggle over here, is at 68.40. Really, really good for the S&P 500. Having a close here, especially on a Friday, at 68. above 68 keeps bulls in total control. We've seen the Mag 7s doing very, very well. Of course, we've had the Meta sell-off, but I think that's been over-dramified, especially by the algos. I think we're going to be seeing buying the dip there with Meta, as that was just a tax bill that, hey, it's just taxes, you got to pay them. Otherwise earnings was decently well. So stock futures, they see the CNBC saying that they're a little changed, but they are up a little bit. More than 300, this is what's keeping me bullish for the end of the year. More than 300 S&P 500 companies have posted third quarter results so far. Of those, over 80% have beaten expectations. So, Wall Street says here has another 100 plus companies reporting this week. Big names, Palantir, of course, and AMD. Fundamentally, the earnings picture is remaining strong right here. And I think that's a big supporter that's kind of bringing some resiliency into the market, especially at these all-time highs. And, people calling AI, is this a bubble? When's this bubble going to pop? I don't know. This momentum is going to keep continuing to ride. And if the earnings can kind of support that, then maybe it's not as much of a bubble that people are calling for, people that have missed the top. I mean, sitting on the sidelines, yes, is always an option. Hedging towards the other way, is always an option. But in terms of Wall Street, they may also get the seasonality boost this month. Historically, what we've seen in terms of seasonality, November is typically a very strong strong month for the market within the year. Historically, it's been the strongest month actually for the actual benchmark of the S&P. We know the U.S. government remains shut down. This is starting to kind of get dragged on now. I'm surprised they actually haven't opened. The market doesn't seem to obviously care. We have seen some uncertainty, regarding some political leaders saying, hey, if this does remain shut down for a long time, we could see some actual impacts to the economy, but that doesn't seem to cause any scare to basically investors, market makers, etc. In terms of the big earnings that are coming out, of course, we have Palantir earnings, but we also are going to be having AMD's earnings that are going to be happening on Tuesday. So back to back here between two different trading sessions. Also watching big AI kind of infrastructure names. You got Cipher Mining right here on Monday. So we also have that. HIMS, which would be interesting. I know it's not an AI, but that's a very big retail stock. You got HIMS. And on Thursday, you got IREN that's going to be coming out. So big tech stocks going to be releasing some earnings, and also we got Hoodie but Goody has been doing very well. As we know, it's like the best stock in the S&P 500 in terms of performance this year. So with Hood right here, it's trading at like 140 or whatever. It'll be interesting to see what happens with them. A lot of optimism with Hood. Let's talk and toggle over here, finishing up with Ethereum. Ethereum has been kind of holding this floor throughout this weekend. Right here at about this 38, and actually, as we speak, we're actually seeing Ethereum that's selling off right here to about 37.54. We'll see if this bottom gets tested right here at this about 3,700 zone over the last month. I mean, Ethereum has established a very strong support level right at about this 3,700 mark, and at this spot, I think has been a decent bottom for Ethereum. For some reason, if that support level fails, that's where I think you could see a continued sell-off. As that correlates to BMNR, as in the overnight session. It's actually up in the green a little bit, which is surprising. This was down, but as we look at it right now at about $45, this is actually a pretty interesting support level for BMNR. In terms of its support, this 46 you can see right here is a strong support level. We're kind of right beneath that area, or this did have a reversal a little bit at 44. And right at this 46. So hopefully that holds there. If we continue to see momentum in a bit, that's where you could see BMNR that could re-enter back into the 50s, testing resistance here if we see any type of positive and stronger momentum into the 55s. Of course, if you see a sell-off in Ethereum, if Ethereum loses that 3,700 support area, that's where you're going to see the $40 support level. It's probably going to be tested. But nonetheless, looking at Ethereum right here, we have a lot of institutional ownership that's behind it. You have the whole announcement from the Fed that quantitative tightening is going to be ending in December. You got seasonality of crypto in November and December, and you have the signaling of the rate cuts that's continuing. And like I said, just with the institutions that are making, like Tom Lee right here, making large purchases, that's kind of what got me interested in BMNR in the first place, because you have these guys from traditional finance on Wall Street that are starting to really take a big bet on the whole tokenization, the institutionalization of Ethereum. You can see right here, and we've seen that with stablecoin usage that's been breaking out. So a lot of people predicting some higher end of the year price targets. We'll see what happens. Typically in crypto, one big thing is when moves are made, they're made relatively quick. Some people have been hitting at supply shock, restraints with reserves and types of stock, stuff like that. So I guess we'll just see what happens with the price action. I don't want to get too caught up on all these little nitty gritty details, expecting things to move one way, la da 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 da. At the end of the day, it's just what's your risk appetite, doing your own due diligence, your own research, and basically how long can you hold it for, and that kind of goes with your risk appetite. So that's all I'm gonna have for you guys. Hope you guys have a good. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Let's have a good week here. Lots of interesting things happening. Big earnings on the table. Be very exciting to report. Peace out. Take care. I'll catch you guys later.